Bless you. Let's go live. Let's talk a little bit about the divine feminine, the divine side of feminine. I hope that you are doing well, and I just want to say God bless you. I hope that things are going well with you. And I wanted to kind of come back and to continue this conversation. There's a lot that we can dig into when we look at ancient Kemet, we look at ancient Kush. There's a lot that we can dig into that helps us really look at how we can address things today. And as I think about this, I want to continue the conversation. I don't intend to ever stop. I intend to keep doing this for as long as I can to really begin to talk about, because I believe that the Kemetic way and the Kushite way of looking at things really tapped into a lot of things in terms of the human spirit and also in terms of a lot of reality and truth. It was one of the reasons why they were able to maintain their civilizations for so long. So as we think about this, and we started to get into, what's happening today, because history is not just something that happened a long time ago. It literally is human beings' experience. And if you want to learn something in life, you want to learn about things that human beings did, you study history, right? You learn our capabilities, you learn our faults, you learn our magnificent things that we can do. And the society that is ancient Kemet and was ancient Kush were significant in, and I believe, human history, because not only what they accomplished from a building type of thing, or even the longevity of their societies, and many things that they contribute to, things that we do today, from science to all types of things, it has also to do with the spirituality. It's funny to me because we think about how we get out of the things that we do, being able to diagnose what's inside of us and being able to diagnose from a spiritual standpoint is significant and central to us being able to just do things in life, us being able to get out of the situation that we're in. And I think that's why ancient Kemet was able to last for so long and to be so successful in their civilization. It's because many things they talked about were correct, right? And so I want to kind of dig into a couple of these things as we think about the divine side of feminine and just kind of jump into this and talk about that whole aspect. Because as I think about this, when you think about it, you understand and know that there were many women in ancient Kemet, many women who were queens, who were priestesses, who had a lot of significant things that they did. And the whole idea, whenever you saw a Kemetic deity, it doesn't matter whether you saw Amen or you saw Ptah, or you saw Tahuti, you saw whoever you were looking at, there was always a divine counterpart. There was always a feminine. We just don't talk about it now. And in a lot of ways, obviously, they spend a lot of time, looking at the male side of the manifestation of God, because also, the rulers were male, but the females were also rulers, and there was never a period of time, whether you looked at Amen or you looked at, as I said, Tahuti or Ptah or any of these deities that were significant deities and creator aspects of the creator, there was never a time that there was not a divine feminine. And when I think about that, and as we think about the types of things that we look at today and how we look at, feminine today, a lot of that is just overlooked. A lot of that is not, from a religious standpoint, a lot of that is not even taken into account when we look at the whole aspect of how things are born into being and how life manifests itself. So I want to say that I'm going to be talking a little bit about this resource that I have available here. And I want to thank you so much for joining. God bless you. Thank you so much for joining. I want to look at this resource. I want to be talking about this resource. This is a resource that I have available on my website for those who are members. And this is when we're talking a little bit about Shepenwepet II. And we're going to talk about it also from a divine feminine standpoint. But I have this resource available, and it is for people who are members. And not only do I have this particular resource that's available, but also additional resources that will just look at just the aspect of a study guide. So I have a study guide that goes with this as well. So as I'm looking at and I'm developing courses that I'm putting out there, I'm working to make the courses even better. I'm working to make the courses even make you think, because as you start to read things and you start looking at them, being able to go back over it, ask yourself some questions, answer questions about it. So I'm putting together a study guide to go along with this resource and this course, and it's up and available on my website right now if you are taking a look at that. And if you remember, and it's talking about Shepenwepet II, who we're going to kind of jump into and talk about now. And it's not just her, but she becomes someone who is a significant representation of the divine feminine. And as I said, we can go through all throughout Kemetic history and look at women who did magnificent things. And anytime you saw a deity, you saw their counterpart. And even when you looked at the whole aspect of a tomb from a Kemetic standpoint, rising out of the waters and rising above on the mound, which many people think that's what the pyramid was representative of. And you find mounds not only in ancient Kemet, but in ancient Kush from a burial standpoint, as well as the capstone on top of it in both places. But not only does a tomb rising out of that divine waters and on top of that mound to be the first act of creation in terms of recognizing and realizing itself, it's the aspect of, you have one part of it kind of coming out, if you will. You have one part of it that is coming out of the ground, coming out of the waters, and that represents kind of the masculine. And the feminine part is that which is hidden, that which sometimes you can't see. And if I think I'll take a look at this tree that I kind of have a depiction of here, it's not just the fact that the tree is there, or you have a magnificent thing that's coming out of the ground, if you will. It's also the fact that you have as many deep roots. And a lot of times when you see a tree, you're looking at a lot of trees, you see them in everyday life. The tree is as deep as it is tall. Right? You can see magnificent, wonderful trees, and they're beautiful, and they are like a tree standing by the water, right? Not being moved. If you had a chance to look at the roots and how wide and deep the roots are, they are just as deep as the thing is tall, as the tree is tall. And I look at that from a standpoint of almost like a tomb, the Kemetic idea and manifestation of creation, right? And we know they had several stories that looked at aspects of creation, all of which were a part of the exact same thing. They just looked at a multiplicity of things that was really coming out of one source. And one of the sources is Atum, that which is self-created. That whole idea of being able to stand upon the mound and to create yourself and to manifest yourself with nothing, being there to do it for you, is that aspect of God, that which creates and is not created, if you will. But at the same time, there was an aspect of God before God manifested itself that was hidden, that was underneath, that was in existence, or in a state that was not formed, if you will, and that helped to bring forth that which was formed, that which you see, that which kind of sticks out, which we kind of represent as a male. And we think about that. We start to think about from a Kemetic standpoint, even from a general African standpoint in general, you see a lot of times women are recognized as being that second half of that. Imagine if you had a tree like this, where you had the part that was above, but is not rooted. A tree can't do much for you. Your community can't do much for you. Your country can't be what it needs to be if it's not rooted. It's almost like it's growing in the wrong way, and it's going to be dead if you don't have your roots, if you don't have that which is underneath what you see. And a lot of times, when in our society, we're looking at the thing that blings, we're looking at the thing that's material, and we don't realize or recognize the things that we don't see. The things that are all around us, whether it's the animals and nature, whether it's our ancestors, whether it's the spiritual side of us, that really are giving us clues to where things are really going. And I believe if we tapped into it, if we really looked at what our ancestors were doing and how they were doing it, it's not just a matter that they did these amazing things. How did they do it? What was their perspective of life? What was their perspective of God? How did they see themselves? And a lot of times in the way we look at things now, we look at ourselves from the standpoint of being, made in sin, not divine. And that's not what our ancestors had a concept of. There was not a concept that we were walking around as sinners, right? And I know that's like, a movie, whatever, but that we're walking around as sinners. That wasn't the concept. Or that somehow we're not worthy of God. We are literally a manifestation of God. We are literally that divine aspect of God, male and female, both male and female, that came to being, that brought all things into existence. And obviously the male and female aspects that we see are just aspects of God, and it manifests itself as male and female. But we didn't see ourselves, Kemetic people, Kushite people, we didn't see ourselves as not being divine, as not being an expression of God. And as you walk around, I was looking today and I posted something on YouTube. In the post, if you take a look at it, I posted a quote from Fannie Lou Hamer. I was listening to some of the interviews that she did and some speeches that she gave and just researching about her. And I have some information about her as well, my website. But, one of the things she said her mother told her, and you probably know Fannie Lou Hamer's life, that she was, born into a sharecropping family, and the people who owned the plantation where her family was forced to sharecrop, forced her to start working when she was 6. She was out there picking cotton when she was 6 years old. That's just ridiculous to have a child, their children out there doing that. But that's what she did. She said her mother, Fannie Lou Hamer said her mother told her that to always have a positive idea of yourself, always have a positive view of yourself, a positive idea of who you are, always have a self-esteem about yourself. If you keep in your mind the idea of who you are and self-respect for yourself, one day at some point in time, other people will have to respect you. And when I think about that and I see that from the standpoint of just divinity itself. If you have a concept of who you are, if you don't allow yourself to leave that concept and that idea of who you are, and you maintain almost like a positive song, almost like a mantra, right? And we know Kemetic people and Kushite people sang and used words of power. They tell us we may not know what all the words of power were, but we know that they used them, and that they use these things to help develop the type of energy. And you can see that even in Western societies, Western African societies and other African societies, you see them drumming up an energy. You see them cultivating energy, whether it's to go to battle, whether that's to go into marriage, whether that's to go into a financial, whether that's to go into just happiness. The whole idea of managing your energy, that whole idea of managing that part of you that you can't see, that part that is the divine, and whether or not that's represented by male or female or what have you, being able to understand and to manage that energy. And that's literally what they were doing. So you see that, and I think about that in terms of what Fannie Lou Hamer's mother told her. Always maintain that positive attitude of yourself, self-respect in your own mind. Never let it go. And if you never let it go and you maintain it in your mind, other people will have to respect you. You are starting to demand things around you. You begin to change things around you if you start to cultivate the energy and the idea of who you are. You begin to change your world. The world doesn't necessarily, revolve around you necessarily, but the world begins to bend. You begin to see situations in your life begin to change once you change. Once you manage that energy and manifest that energy in yourself, you begin to see the world around you change. And that I believe is what the Kemetic people were talking about when they said, we are a manifestation of the divine, that we have the ability to change things in our lives and to make things happen in life. I believe they were talking about it from a standpoint of being able to manage that energy and being able to change things in your life, that it's not a fake thing. This is not something that our ancestors were practicing for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, and somehow it wasn't real. They would literally practice it. And it was that idea of cultivating the energy that's inside you that allowed you to be able to develop science. It allowed you to come up with epiphanies. I was talking to someone the other day, and we were talking about, God bless you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you for sharing that. That's very helpful. I very much appreciate that. So yes, thank you so much for just sharing that. I was talking with someone the other day, and we were talking about just prayer, right? And the idea of praying and mantraing and how that helps you. And one of the things that he made a point was that, our ancestors spent a lot more time praying. Right? Our ancestors spent a lot more time in the divine and probably had a lot more time, right, to study things at temples. And when we were talking about Shepenwepet, I'll give you like a little picture of her tree here. You see her on the far left. That's her. She is the person who's the subject of this PDF that I have available on my website for members. That's Shepenwepet the second there. She is part of a family of people. She is Piankhy's daughter. She's Taharka's sister. She becomes God's counterpart of Amen. She's God's wife of Amen, if you will. She is a person who is a divine priestess, a high priestess at the temple of Amenhotep at Karnak, right? And so she begins to have a significant role in her life. She becomes one of the most significant people in Kemetic history, in my opinion, because she pushed these things on. She was one of the most significant people in Kemet and Kush during her lifetime, and I believe in history, because she was able to take on a role. And I think the fact that her role is remembered today, and what she did as a high priestess, and what she did as representing the divine aspect of God from a feminine standpoint, I think that's significant. Many people live, and thousands of years after they live, nobody remembers them, and we remember her. So she must have had an impact. And so I think about that within the standpoint of us being able to look at both aspects of the divine and being able to understand that our ancestors were practicing and had a respect for women. We deal a lot of times with religion, and we'll just say it. Let's just talk about it because, from a Western African standpoint, you see a lot of people, a lot of societies recognizing their women, understanding the divine, not disrespecting them, having women, run markets and having women be queens and having women have power. But we live in a society where a lot of people still don't think a woman can lead. A lot of people still don't even recognize the power that is encompassed in when you are able to deal with the things that actually bring things into being, when you're able to see things that are hard for other people to see, when you're able to go into the root of things and be able to understand where things are going, when you can see exactly what that child needs, or exactly what that man needs, or exactly what that woman needs, when you begin to see through the things, you can begin to cut through things. And as I was mentioning, the person I was talking to was saying that our ancestors spent a lot more time in prayer. They spent a lot more time seeking after and going after divine. They spent a lot more time trying to make sure that they were in touch with that aspect of themselves that brought them closer to God. And it brings forth epiphanies. It brought forth science. It brought forth, understandings of how we will push the whole burial process forward, the whole idea of pyramids, the whole idea of of mathematics. When you read the Rhine Mathematical Papyrus, and maybe one day we'll go over that here and talk about how they did fractions and area and things of that nature, and adding, subtracting, and division, all kinds of things they did, volume, things like that. But the beginnings of their mathematical papyrus says, we're going to talk about and kind of introduce you to all things that are secret, give you an idea of the divine through mathematics. Think about that for a minute. They were looking at every aspect of their lives as being divine and having a spiritual side of it. So as you think about that, they weren't looking at math as being something that was not spiritual, that was not universal. They were understanding that if I go inside of myself, if I go inside me, I can tap into things that will give me answers, the things I never knew before. It would tap into a side of things that will give me answers, that will allow me to solve problems I have in my life that some people thought were unsolvable. Now, this is 5,000 years ago, 3,000 BC. They're doing these types of things, and they're coming up with these things based on what they need, but also based on prayer. And sometimes today, when we think about things that are going on in our societies, and we think about things that Black people are going through, things that Latino people are going through, things that all kinds of people are going through all over the world, we don't even put prayer in a serious way as a way we can address it. Yet these are the things that our ancestors did. It's time for us not to be ashamed, not to move away from what our ancestors were doing, but actually to embrace it, actually to look at the types of prayers, the type of mantras. And the biggest part about it is going inside. The biggest part about it is not spending too much time even on social media here or on TikTok, or allowing other people to shape for you what your idea of you will be like, or what your idea of what's possible. And that's exactly what Fannie Lou Hamer's mother was telling her when she said, keep in your mind a positive idea about yourself. Never let that go. And when you do that, the world around you will change. People will respect you. Our ancestors spent a lot more time cultivating that in them. And our children, one of the things I find, and I'll be interested to hear what you guys think about it. When I think about this woman right here and all the things that she went through in life, a lot of times our children don't have coping mechanisms. They can't deal with it. I mean, think about all the stuff that's going on. God bless you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Think about all the stuff that's going on so much in life right now, where a lot of people can't cope. Unfortunately, a lot of people are losing their jobs. They're losing their livelihoods. They're losing maybe their relationships and their families. Things that they maybe expected would happen in their life are not happening. Crazy stuff is going on. And people a lot of time will turn to drugs. They turn to opioids. A lot of people in our lives, in our country, are turning to opioids to cope, and have been doing it for decades, for years. They've been doing it. And so you have a problem and you don't know how to face it, and you end up turning to drugs. Or you end up turning to alcohol, or you end up turning to someone else to try to make you feel better and not know how to go inside yourself. Imagine this, right? Imagine this woman who's living, thousands of years ago. She's living more than 2,000 years ago, teaching us and showing us how to go inside. Literally being a leader at the temple of Karnak at Ephesus, the most selective places, and showing people how to connect with God. I mean, that's what showing people how to connect with God. Imagine that. Our children are in situations where they are being led by people who are leaderless. And I'm saying that, and I think about her, and I think about her father, Piankhy. There's a famous part, and I write about it in my book about King Piankhy. And King Piankhy is Shepenwepet's father. He is the person his father was Kashta. He is the person who followed up on his father's move into ancient Kemet, right? So when Kush was going into Kemet, not violently, Kashta went in and took over the southern part of Kemet, really at the behest and apparently being welcomed by the priest in Ephesus in the southern part of Kemet. They wanted him there. But when Piankhy came, he already had control of southern Kemet, and obviously all of Lower Nubia and Upper Nubia, all of Kush he had control of. And he came and he pushed farther into the northern part of Kemet because there were people there who wanted to come farther south to try to take over the part that he controlled. So he took the fight to them, if you will. He came to fight him. And her father, Shepenwepet's father, basically said, when he conquered one of the areas in the middle to northern part of ancient Kemet, he went into the city and he faced the person who was his main adversary, the foe, the ruler of the area, and he said, where are you? Where are your leaders? He said, your cities are filled with children. You have no elders to guide you. What made you think that you should come against God and come against me and make these foolish things? Your city is filled with children. And when I think about that, as I think about that whole concept and think about that from a divine feminine side, we have a lot of children who are not being parented, who don't have mothers that will take care of them, who don't have real father. We got grandparents who aren't we have our cities are filled with children. No leaders, people who lack the ability or the development or the willingness to go inside the parent to lead. And I'm saying that because that's just the truth, because a lot of times when we have challenges in our lives now, our children don't know what to do. Our children are stuck. We're going, and even our adults, because maybe they didn't get parented. And I think part of the reason is we have forgotten our practices. This woman here, Shepenwepet II, was someone who would have prayed constantly, who would have been daily in the temple of Amen, who would have been like a representation of the counterpart, the partner of Amen, the representation of Maat. She would have been someone who would have been giving sacrifices, who would have had a whole legion of people helping her, a whole staff of people helping her. But she would have been prayerful. She would have been doing mantras and word of power. She would have been singing. She would have been the intercessor on part of the whole country and on the part of the rulers to help God manifest itself and help God pray and help God connect with them and to bring success to what was happening in the country and for the ruler. She would have been practiced for that. So imagine if you have a problem and you are used to going inside yourself. Imagine if you have a problem and you are used to tapping inside your own power and coming up in your own mind with what is possible, knowing that you are a divine aspect of God. Imagine yourself as a high priest or high priestess back in the Akhetaten in the temple of Karnak thousands of years ago, 5,000 years ago, and you were accustomed to practicing going inside, understanding that you were divine, understanding that your mother was, that your wife was, that your husband was, that your family was, and that you had the ability to address, and that God had the ability to address anything that you were dealing with through you. See, a lot of the Kemetic people, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. God bless you. A lot of people will look at people and will want someone else, right? If you look at Kemetic ideas and Kemetic stories and Kemetic just religious and theology, you don't really necessarily see there being an idea of somebody coming to save the day. I mean, obviously you have Asar there. Obviously you have many things like that. You don't necessarily see there being an idea of somebody like, coming to like save the day or anything like that. You see the idea of the process that's going to happen to get you out of a situation coming through you. So the idea that you were the divine, the idea that you were going to be the one who would fight against, the enemy that was coming, that you were going to be the one that there was a famine, you were going to pray and God was going to make it happen, and you were going to stand in the gap so that your deliverance comes through you. Our deliverance comes through us. And that doesn't mean that it's not pooping. Your deliverance comes through you. That whole idea that God is manifested inside you is a powerful thing. And I think about our children today, and I think about our people who cannot deal with the challenges we are facing today. And a lot of our challenges may not be as even difficult. Hotep, how are you? God bless you. God bless you. A lot of things that we are dealing with may not be even as challenging as some other people dealt with. I can't imagine what Harriet Tubman went through. I can't imagine what Frederick Douglass went through and the things that Sojourner Truth went. I can't imagine living in some conditions that people lived in even thousands of years ago. Our ancestors faced horrible, difficult conditions at all types of point in time. But no matter where they were born, no matter what time, what space, where they were somehow able to connect to the divine in them. And I think that's the challenge, right? Is to be able to recognize the divine inside yourself. They were somehow able to do that and to face those challenges. And we've lost that. And the evidence of it is in our children, that when we find something difficult, we turn to material things. And I even think about the trial that's going on with P. Diddy and all the craziness that's there, and how someone would think that materialism and that intercourse and sex and things like that were things that would make you powerful. How they would think that hurting somebody would make you somehow powerful. How people do that. Then it's not just one person, obviously. People actually think that sex or power or an intimidation is power. People think that, right? And that's what he's on trial. That's what he's accused of doing. That's what, the video shows that. But people think that we gather towards and we get our biggest stars. I don't care if you're in Hollywood or if you're in playing basketball, football, walking around with gold rings, not using it to make technology, but just walking around with stuff on you. Like I have a lot of stuff and our children are in our communities and they can't read. Our children are in our communities and they can't read. And I'm thinking about this woman's father right here, Shepenwepet II's father, Piankhy, when he says, your cities are filled with children. Who's going to lead? There are a lot of people also, and you guys can tell me what you think. There are a lot of people I talk to, and almost everybody I talk to God bless you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate that. Almost everybody I talk to, when I mention the AI to them, I talk about, artificial intelligence and things. And a lot of people, talking to Black people, a lot of people, and a lot of our people will say, they're being told that somehow something's wrong with this, or we should be scared of this, or do we even need to go to college? I mean, I see these things, and I see these things targeted toward African Americans, and people sending that message: do you need to be educated anymore? Do you need to go to college anymore? Should you even be looking at this AI? That is not the concept, and that is not the approach our ancestors took. They didn't take an approach to remove themselves from mathematics. You think about Shepenwepet II and her ancestors, and the people who held the role at Amenhotep, and the people who built the magnificent temples. They were building it with mathematics. They were building it with geometry and with algebra and all kinds of science, and with things we call chemistries and aspects of calculus to calculate the stars. They were not shying away from any type of technology or advancement in science, because it was one and the same. And they saw it as a part of themselves, and they saw it as a manifestation of God. But we today look at outside things as being power. We may see somebody like LeBron, or somebody who's a big NBA player or something like that, and we want to mimic stuff. You're wonderful because you have stuff, and when you see them celebrate, they're drinking something, or they're smoking a cigar, they're drinking some type of alcohol, and that's what we think somehow is what we should be doing. And there's no power in that. And then we wonder, when we have a challenge in our lives, how come we cannot deal with it? We begin to think that the Super Bowl players, or the ball players, or the entertainers, the people in Hollywood, that when they walk around, these are the things that we need. And many times their lives, just like ours, are falling apart. And when our ancestors built civilizations and they built societies based on the divine, and they didn't take the divine away from male or female, they weren't silly enough to do that. They weren't stupid enough to do that. You were literally taking away half of your resources, half of your main brand power, half of your divinity, when you take one side of who we are and somehow say that does not deserve to lead, or it doesn't have divine. We're taking away our resources. And I'd love to hear what you think as I kind of jump into the chat, because I really appreciate that. So, and you were asking where have I been? I've been working on some stuff, just to let you know. So I've been working on a lot of stuff. I'm putting together a whole series of courses. And so you asked where I've been. I like to kind of put my money where my mouth is, so to speak, put my actions where my mouth is, so to speak. So I've been working on developing mathematical courses, putting together things on computer science. I'm going to be launching a whole online course that doesn't just talk about Kemetic history, but also talks about, Black history in general, but also talks about mathematics. When I was reading, because I've been reading a lot about Kemetic mathematics and looking at how the scribes and the ancients approached mathematics, and math is a fundamental thing. It's not a Caucasian thing. It's not a European. It's not a given people. This is something that came out of Africa. This is something that we embrace, and I see people talking about a lot of things or ways to solve our problems, but we don't talk about the science that our ancestors did. They didn't run away from education. None of this will help us if we can't build. And I think that, so I've been working on a lot of that to answer your question. I very much appreciate you asking. I've been working on a lot of that to kind of bring that forth. But I think that everything we look at, whether we're looking at mathematics, whether we're looking at science, whether we're looking at computer science and technology, guys, it's here, it's coming. We have to embrace it and ride the wave and control it rather than having it control us. But all of those things begin with divinity. All of those things begin on the idea of who you think you are, who you know you are, and what your belief systems are. What you think you can do. I mean, you will go around and say, I cannot be this, I cannot do this. So thank you. I'm gonna look at that. I don't know about the 17th and 18th dynasty and 16th dynasty, which has been erased. I'll have to look at that because I didn't see that. I'm going to check into that if there was something that what you're talking about. I don't know that anything's been erased, but I'll look into that. I appreciate you. I'll look in that. So thank you for sharing with that. I'll see where that is. I appreciate that. So thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, we're gonna try to put more out there, because I think that I don't want us to have. I don't want this platform or this whole thing to be something that is nothing and we just talk. I really want us to be able to develop the spiritual acuity, right? The spiritual ability to be able to address any situation we have. And when you develop that spiritual acuity, that spiritual skill, if you will begin to address any aspect of your life. And I see it in 5 areas. I see it obviously in spirituality, which encompasses everything, your whole view of yourself, the reality of who you are, even Maat. One of the things I think about, one of the challenges I think we have is that we're not living even according to Maat. When we think about this and we kind of move forward, a lot of we talk a lot about, this is interesting, man. I'd love to hear what you guys think, because people are talking a lot about the trial and the Diddy trial, and they're talking about a lot about various things that have happened just in the world in general. And a lot of times we will judge things by being right or wrong, I believe, by not really looking at some of the laws in place that our ancestors put to help us, right? And from my standpoint, Maat is a significant, obviously, law and truth that, if you look at and you read Kemetic literature, talks about how we're able to go on to the other side based on how we live truth, how we lived out the trueness of God in our heart, how we didn't hurt other people, how we did not, I've brought no fear to anyone. I've made no one to feel fear. I've killed no one. I've not lied. I've not, made some, spoken falsely or stolen away from God. All these things that allow your perfectness in conduct, right? And as we start to look at ourselves, begin to shape ourselves within the context of morality, within the context of Maat. And I see a lot of times we will look at people who might be in entertainment and people who may have material things, and they may do things that are outside of Maat, outside of morality, and we make excuses for it. We accept it because they have money, right? We'll watch movies or we'll listen to music that talk about horrible things and bring negative impressions into our spirits and even into the spirits and minds of our children, and we accept it because it's entertaining and it's shiny, or because it makes money. I really think that whole idea is that we're operating outside of leadership and outside of Maat, outside of a set of laws that says, you do unto me as I do unto you. We live in a situation where we try to live that way every day. And I think that having that concept, the reason why our ancestors could even come up with an idea like Maat is because they were living it. They were trying to live it, and they were spending a lot of time in prayer. And the revelation that God gave to them was behave in a certain way. Power is in love. Love is powerful. Love is the most powerful source you have. People will do things for love that they won't do for like. People will do things for love that they won't do for hate. People will do things for love in ways that are just amazing. It's the most powerful force in the universe, and it is akin to spirituality. It's akin to Hotep. I'd love to hear your definition of it. Whatever you want to call it, peace, Hotep, love, it is the most powerful thing that will move you and move things for you. And your ancestors were cultivating that. They were cultivating that. And as they cultivate Hotep, as they cultivate peace, satisfaction, love, that was the overwhelming arching part of it. And that's like the 5 things to look at. And then when you go beyond that, then you start to manifest your resources and your finances. Then you start to manifest your relationships and families and who people you might marry. You start to look at your health and begin to look at those types of things. You start to look at your education and academic type of things. Those things begin to grow out of having a sound foundation of who you are, having a divine view of who you are, having an understanding of divinity in everything you see. God didn't make anything that wasn't divine. God didn't make anything that you can't use. You think about Native American people, you think about our ancestors, you think about people all over the world who understood that everything you have can be used. Right now, we literally have tons and tons of trash that we throw away every day. And we put them out to sea. We buried it in landfills. We set them on barges and float them out. Trash that we just throw away. That concept was foreign to Native American people. It was foreign to Kemetic and our ancestors. The idea that you make something that you just throw away was just foreign to them. And so this concept of being able to tap into the divine will give you answers to things you didn't know. Will answer yourself academically. Will answer your mathematical questions. Will answer problems you might have financially. It will answer all kinds of things you have because you spend time looking at the thing that gives you the answers, that brings forth all the answers. And I think that's what Shepenwepet for me represents. She represents a woman, a person who is spiritually connected to that and working to develop it from a divine standpoint. So I think about that. Yeah, you saw the movie Clone Tyrone. I didn't see that. So and then 40 Laws of Maat, even adding it to my homeschool, that's very good. I see you saying I've been doing more with the intentional with the 42 Laws of Maat, even adding it to my homeschooling. Just that's wonderful because, and I talk about that all the time with my son and various things like that. That is something that we should think about. And the Laws of Maat, some of them, it's not a problem if they're changed a little bit. I mean, from a standpoint, not everything is going to be something we're doing today. So we're obviously not sacrificing animals. We're not doing that. There are other types of sacrifice we do in terms of giving up things that may not be good for us, right? So those are things that we may be giving up, not necessarily animals that are important to us. So I love that idea of taking the Laws of Maat, and I've written about that, and I put sum it up on my website as well, taking the laws of Maat, knowing what they said, remembering them, and also the teachings of Ptahhotep. I'm wondering if you would put that in your homeschool, because the teachings of Ptahhotep also allow you to kind of break down aspects of the laws of Maat in a very practical way. They really speak to, interactions with people, and how, a father might speak to a son, or an adult might speak to a son, or somebody who has leadership ability and leadership thrust upon them, how you would handle the things, how you would handle your neighbor. So the teachings of Ptahhotep also do that as well. So yeah, that's an important thing. And I think about it, we were talking about, you were mentioning that things that we have things fed to us, right? And there are things that are being given to us. A lot of things are being fed to us. And for me, somebody mentioned a movie. I don't really watch a lot of movies anymore. I can't even, the last time I went to a movie, it's been years. It's been a while, let's say, since the last one, because for me, a lot of it just feeds you nonsense. I feel like, how many more years do I have to live? How much time do I have on earth? For whatever time that is, it's not enough. I want more of it, right? I don't want to spend even a minute of it with foolishness. I don't want to spend a minute of it giving me something that's not good. It's like eating junk food, right? Stuff that's not good for you, and spending your time doing that. If I can stop doing it, if I have the will to push away from that, then I'm feeding myself, just like the sister here, just like this woman, good stuff all the time. Imagine what she was eating spiritually. Imagine what she was taking in all the time, being a high priestess at Ipetsut, being someone who was one of the most important people there, having a significant family and follow, and being someone who prayed on behalf of the country, literally spending her whole life dedicated to developing the divine. She was probably magnificent. She probably had a lot of peace, I believe. I think she believed in what she was doing, and that she was able to manifest a lot of things in life, and her life is remembered. She's one of the few women who were, the counterpart of our men, and held that role that we still remember. I mean, how many do we remember? It's not like we remember 1,000 names that were doing it, right? She's one of the people that we remember. And I think that becomes significant when you begin to apply this in a practical way. So I don't even really watch a lot of the movies and the television. I don't even turn my television on, because that's just for me right now. That's personally where I am. And I haven't done it in a while, and I don't intend to. So we'll see how the future goes. But it just feeds you crap. It feeds you junk food. And you do it, and it's not as fulfilling as reading. It's not as fulfilling as spirituality. It's not as fulfilling as doing something. I'd rather be sitting, developing a course on mathematics, teaching kids strategies for addition, or about decimals, and how to manage that, and in place value, and different things like that. Things that I know will help them manage money, things that I know will help them solve problems, than to watch some silliness for 2.5 hours or 2 hours and just waste my time. So I haven't watched a lot of movies, because I think they fill you with a lot of crap, and sometimes they're not useful. That's just my opinion. Get out with the body parts. Yeah. I didn't see that, but okay. But yeah, I know some of that is, they put the truth right in our faces. Okay. Have you ever heard of the author Ahmed Osman? So I've not heard of the author Ahmed Osman. Tell me about Ahmed. You can tell me more about it. I haven't heard of the author Ahmed Osman. I may have to look it up. I haven't heard of it. I may have to look at Ahmed Osman. So I enjoyed it. And for me, reading a lot about that, that's my calling, right? The whole idea of reading a lot about spirituality, studying this. And I feel like there's so much more I can study. I have to study about ancient Kemet and about ancient Kush. And I'm just tipping the iceberg when it comes to Kush. There's still going to be so much more that I would share. I'm just tipping the iceberg, but I feel like there's so much deepness in there. And I feel like a society that was able to last for more than 3,000 years. And Kush, as you know, and the people that were in ancient Yam and Kush, right there around the third cataract of Nile, first of all, you see people there for hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years. Our ancestors are in that area of Africa. But from a Kushite standpoint and a Yam standpoint, you see them there, obviously around that time. In 3,500 BC, they're trading, they have societies. And even though obviously societies come and go, they have ups and downs. Even when ancient Kemet fell, even when the new kingdom fell, the kingdom of Kush and her family lasted for well over another 1,000 years, some 1,200 years, still pushing on the tradition, still pushing on the concept of God, still pushing on the divine for well over 1,000 years. That's an amazing. We haven't even been around in America for a few hundred years, really. We're not even 300 years old. We haven't been around for a few hundred years, but the whole idea to move forward and to be able to push something on for well over 1,000 years, 1,200 years, 2,000 years, 3,000 is amazing. Imagine, and when you think about this, just to let you know, this whole family, and I'll be doing more on her family, this whole family, it was that family line and that dynasty that was able to last for more than 1,000 years. You can look at, when you start to look at ancient Taharka, and you start to look at just kind of give you some perspective here. We start to look at this family here from Alara to Kashta to King Piankhy and to Harka and Shabaka and things of that nature. And you see women like Amenhotep, just to let you know, when you look at up there, you see up to Harka in the middle in blue. His daughter was Amenhotep the second. His sister was Shepenwepet, who we've been talking about, the second. And his aunt was Amenhotep, and these were all women who were at the temple at Karnak, Amenhotep, the most selected places, and they were the counterparts of Amen, if you will. They served a very significant role in Amenhotep. And you also see Taharka's brother Shabaka and his wife Kahalta. And these are just, and she was an amazing figure. If you see some of her tomb, or some of the remains of her tomb, which I think is beautiful, where they show her having given the Ankh and the breath of life. These are just some of the women that you can mention in the early part of the resurgence, if you will, of Kush in the 8th century BC and moving forward, who were able to take their family members, this whole family, and to keep their line going. Because as we talk more about that, and I will, Taharka, his line goes on for years. I mean, you at Nursa and you start going on, his family line goes on for years. He was a remarkable person as well. We'll dig deep into him, and I have stuff about him on my website for members as well, of course, about him. But this family was able to go on for well over 1,000 years. And when you look at the whole concept of it, thousands of years of this area of ancient Kush pushing forth these ideas and concepts. And as I mentioned, we've only been around, or haven't been around even for a few hundred years, to think about what does it take to make something last for thousands of years? What does it take to make something be in existence for thousands of years and to let it go on? I think that you have to be able to dig deep into the roots. I think that you have to be able to tap into the divine. You have to be able to address situations that are going to come up that you don't anticipate. You have to be able to tap into who you are in order to be able to create things that never existed before. And I think that has to do with the divine and respecting both of them. I think you have to do it. And I think that's why our children, I think the whole Ethiopia, right? I think that's why our children can't cope. I think that's why our children have a problem of dealing with realistic things, because they can't cope. I agree. Watch your thoughts and watch your thoughts in your mind. Yeah, right. The mind of Z. You watch your thoughts in your mind. You have to, because at the end of the day, and now I'll go further south in the mountain to the moon. Yeah, connected to other tributaries south. Yep, the source is further south. Yeah. The source of the Nile is further south. Our ancestors told us that. And you even look back. I was talking to someone today who was talking about the coloring of the ancient rock paintings that are in southern Africa that are beautiful, and you see them in a kind of a reddish hue that you see marked all up and down now. All of them, they're going all into ancient Europe too as well. You find that all over there, because obviously the people from Africa peopled all over the world. They people places all over the world and took their technology and their traditions and their givings with them. So as I think about that whole idea becomes significant. It goes back far in the past, and the idea of understanding where you are in the divine. And really, I mean, these are wonderful things to talk about, but if our children can't deal with everyday things that happen to them, whether or not, they lose their tennis shoes, or their parents lose their job, or they grow up and get in a situation where they don't have any money and they're trying to deal with all the craziness that's happening in the world. How do they deal with that without turning to things that are not useful to them, that are destructive to them? And a lot of times we will come back and begin to say, go to coaching, go to counseling, which I am for, and people need that. People need that type of counseling at times and coaching. But a lot of times our children, and a lot of times the concepts that they teach you in some of these sessions are very similar to the same things your ancestors were doing anyway, right? A lot of times we will take things today that are modern, whether it's the concept of computers and binary technology and a binary way of looking at things. That concept of binary was in place in Africa and in places beyond that long before it came into other places. That whole concept was there. We take sometimes concepts that our ancestors have had for thousands, maybe even millions of years, because I believe in our ancestors as well, our human ancestors, and we have it brought back to us, put somebody else's name on it, and we'll accept it. But the problem is it doesn't come with a complete package, and you find it still not being what you need. But we a lot of times will accept somebody else telling us, right? That this is the way to go. And there's nothing wrong with people doing things. You may have people who do mantra, or they may do yoga, various things all around the world. But you have to know that your ancestors did it too. And a lot of times your ancestors did it first. And to take a concept and an idea, whether it's prayer or mantraing or seeing the divine inside yourself, or understanding how to go inside with God, understanding how to push things away and come inside yourself for answers, and being able to develop and cultivate your own peace, to take that, know that your ancestors did it forget it, the practice there, and then let somebody else bring you the same thing and just repackage it and put their name on it. It makes no sense. We are not going to be able to get out of this thing without our ancestors and the practices of our ancestors. I truly believe that. So I want to thank you for joining me. I want to come back in later on in the next couple of days and some things, and come back with more stuff, because I have additional things that I want to share around King Taharka, who is Shepenwepet II's brother, around various things. Amenhotep and whole idea of Amenhotep III, many people like that. I want to come back to you with additional things, in particular around King Taharka, and to share some more research with him. That whole concept of looking at brother and sister in the divine, male and female, and being able to work together. So God bless you. I thank you for joining me. I pray that you'll join me next time as I try to come back in. I'll try to come back in tomorrow night, hopefully. But God bless you. I thank you so much for joining me, and take care. I'll talk to you soon.